if you think that our values, well, that's what I was about to say. Like, if you say that our values are ones that are ideal enough to bring about like substantial change and are actually worth it, I wouldn't be opposed to like having our influence overseas.
Good.
But I feel like this moves kind of past Israel-Palestine and more just like our like what we want for like as in like with pragmatic results. That's pretty much it.
No, I get you.
But yeah.
So I guess me and you were in total agreement about not labeling it a G-side? It's an important distinction to be made. I mean, at the end of the day, if the ICJ doesn't come to that conclusion, why should you?
I think the way people use it can be dishonest, but I also think that there is a justifiable case to be made, even though it has not been like officially made yet.
Well, the ICJ says it's plausible, which means that like if Israel were to continue to conduct itself in the way that it does, it could be labeled as a G-side. They didn't give me numbers, but here's the issue: is that when I have Bibi Netanyahu going on the Nelk Boys and saying that Donald Trump and him are in lockstep, and that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were bringing like sizable levels of adversity for him to conduct himself in the way that he's been conducting himself as of now. Like, anyone who's in this chat who isn't like firmly of the position that the Democratic Party is the like only logical, rational thing to vote for in 2026, 2028, 2030, 2032, 2034, 2036, like the Republican Party has lost its legitimacy for the next like 3 decades. And if you can't recognize that and you can't like vote blue no matter who in that respect, then I don't know what to tell you. I feel like you're not taking politics that seriously. I'm not saying you're
I agree.
I don't think people are taking politics that seriously when they arrive at those kinds of conclusions.
Personally, at this point, if under international law this isn't considered a genocide, then at that point I would have to make the argument that we need to rewrite international law. I don't think under any circumstance that we should justify the loss of 60,000 lives and the projected loss of millions. Right? You know, it's not. No, yeah. It's not, that doesn't, I don't think that should make sense. Clearly, these laws have been written by people who were always the winners and the genocidal ones in the fucking first place. Obviously, they're going to write some loopholes and leeways into their own laws, right? And I think that's just the case, right?
But that's why when I heard Israel is influencing the ICJ in a way that would make it so that they wouldn't come to the conclusion that they should come to, is that what you're saying?
I don't know if there's any evidence for that. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying that international law are written by these superpowers, and these superpowers are do you disagree?
No, I mean, like, there is truth to the fact that NATO has a lot of influence in international law for sure, and like making international law what it is.
That's what I'm saying.
I guess I wouldn't say that's inherently a bad thing.
No, I'm not saying that it's inherently a bad thing, but what I'm saying is that when it comes to things with NATO and the fact that these are powerful countries, we have to look at the fact that obviously these are countries who a lot of people believe themselves have committed a genocide, right? Obviously, I don't believe that they're going to write into law something that could cause them to get sanctioned themselves, which is unfortunate, and it makes people like not want to trust our international law, is what I'm saying.
There's some truth to that, and that's fair. But at the end of the day, like it should be continuously expressed that like after you make a statement like that, it should continuously be expressed that Kamala Harris would bring about better
100%, 1,000%.
Okay,
they put a wrench in their shit.
Then you are
also,
like,
Chad, don't get me confused. Also, Chad, don't get me confused. I'm not saying that I don't believe it's a genocide. It is a fact that that Israel has not been officially stated that it's a genocide. My stance is that
Israel, it's the ICJ, the International Court of Justice.
I'm sorry. That is fuck. Shut up. Of course, it's not officially stated that Israel is committing a genocide, is what I meant to say. It's not officially stated, right? If it was, Israel would be dissolved almost immediately. That's like the action that's like the agreement, the action that everyone made. Mm-hmm. But I believe that this is still categorically a genocide. And if it's not the case under like law, I think these laws need to be rewritten.
Why are you capitulating to your audience when you literally just told me the exact opposite?
Why do you think I'm capitulating to my audience?
Because you just told me that if the ICJ doesn't come to that conclusion, no, because I'm destroying you right now, and I think you know it.
You're destroying me?
Yes, I am, unfortunately. But here's the issue: is you just told me that if the ICJ doesn't come,
this is so unfair. I hate when you do this.
Hang on. Here's the issue: is if you just told me that you think the ICJ has a better opportunity to come to better conclusions on this conflict and aren't describing the conflict in the way that you just described it, then why would you seemingly be opposed to that? I think you and me both agree that the ICJ isn't this corrupt, nefarious, evil, cartoonishly evil entity. Like if it was a G-side, the ICJ would come to that conclusion. Okay, but you just said that you think it's a G-side. So what you're saying is that you fundamentally disagree with the ICJ.
I think they're going to come to the conclusion regardless.
Okay, but as of right now, the ICJ says it's quote unquote plausible. It doesn't mean that it actually is. And
why is it plausible?
Plausible because if Israel was to continuously conduct itself in the way that it's conducting itself right now for an extended period of time, we don't know what that extended period of time is.
I would need to know what their country. But obviously, I trust these organizations.
Okay,
that's not what I'm saying.
Then why are you diametrically opposed to what they're saying?
Wait a minute. What I'm saying is that what they're going off of are rules written by superpowers who have already committed these crimes themselves. That is what I'm saying.
When has
right?
the United States conducted genocide?
There is a justifiable level of distrust of these international laws.
Okay, nothing. Okay, you're obfuscating. You're obfuscating.
Oh, no.
I think you understand intuitively that you are. You didn't engage with what I just said, and I think you understand that intuitively. When I say that the way in which we choose to define what the Israel government is doing, it fundamentally alters the way in which we're going to approach the situation geopolitically. So if the ICJ does not come to the conclusion that you're espousing right now, that would seemingly have to mean that you feel as though you have more resources to come to conclusions that are better than the ICJ, or you're of the opinion that the ICJ is so corrupt that it couldn't come to the right conclusion in this moment. It's one of those two. And you could say either or. But at the end of the day, if we were to define it as what you're defining it as, the Democratic Party would have no leg to stand on because they would be actively supporting a G-side. And then you would literally be right to not vote for Kamala Harris because who votes for that? You feel me? That's the issue. And if we can't come to that, if we can't come to definitive definitions of this conflict,
then putting a wrench in their work. I think even still is so. I am listening to you. This is unfair. Brother, don't fucking scoff at me, okay? Let's be so serious.
You're wrong, and you know you're wrong, but you have to capitulate to your audience in this moment.
I don't think I just think that triggered me. That actually pissed me off.
Yep, tough. It's true.
You think me?
It's true.
Tashika capitulates to her audience?
Yes. It's true. You just went ass backwards on your previous claim because you saw your chat saying it's a G-side.
No.
Yep.
What the fuck?
Yes.
You think I'm saying it because my chat
Bro,
thinks
your
so?
snark page is gonna fucking love me, dude. Holy shit. They're gonna love me, bro. They will.
You're liberal. You're annoying.
Yeah.
You're annoying.
You're a liberal,
I think
bro.
you're not understanding my stance, though. Obviously, to answer your question, I would have to see categorically, right? Why they would come to the conclusion of it not being a genocide, right?
Well, they've expressed that multiple times.
I would have to see, one second, and I would have to see what they would categorize it as instead. Right? Like what is their proclaimed definition of genocide? Like what are the qualifications? You know?
Under accordance of international law, I would agree with you that it's actually kind of dog shit. So the actual definition of G-side is to destroy in whole or in part a population, and you have the expressed intent to do so. Ethnic cleansing is substantially different, where you're just forcefully relocating these people. And while yes, you can unfortunately cause civilian casualties on said population, the level by which you would be doing that wouldn't be adequate in describing it as a quote-unquote G-side. And that's why I take big contention with all of this complicated rhetoric where we can't come to definitive conclusions.
Let me understand.
With the ICJ, who is far more intelligent than both you and me combined and has far more access to this information, they come to a diametrically opposite opinion to what the vast majority of your chat is saying.
Wait a minute. I think, okay, you have already proven yourself to be someone who is very much a stickler about words. Same with Destiny. He makes the exact same arguments.
It's so important.
That are in accordance, yes, I understand, that in accordance to international law, there must be established intent to eradicate a particular group of people off the planet. You agree?
Well, here's the issue: is that it says in whole or in part. So what does the in part mean? Right. You feel me?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Is it when you unalive 10 people? Is it when you unalive 10? Like, what's the threshold? There is no defined threshold. And when you're coming to decisions about international law at large, there needs to be definitive explanations for that.
So wait, we don't disagree then?
Okay, no, we do,
how are we
because again, it's the rhetoric in which you're
how does my
choosing to
definition, if I'm going by the same definition of genocide, if I'm
smarter than the ICJ, is that what's going on right now? Do you think you are smarter? Do you think you are smarter than the ICJ?
That's such a disingenuous question.
No,
I don't think I have more research.
It's not.
Of course, Of course, I would 100% understand and look at what their conclusions are. 1000%. If in accordance to international law, like under definition of genocide in international law, Israel is categorically not committing a genocide, then that would just be the case. But at that point, we need to rewrite international law so that this does constitute as genocide.
Wait, okay. Now I understand.
Do you agree with that?
I understand what you're saying, but how? Like, what? By what metric are you choosing to come to the conclusion that it is a G-side? Like you'd have to express that, because if you're that diametrically opposed to international law, to where you want to label this conflict as a G-side, when the international law, and again, here's my issue.
Well, hold on.
Wait, hang on. No. If me and you are of the opinion that the ICJ is a moral agent and is operating in the most moral way possible, then it would make sense that they would be arriving at the conclusion that you're talking about right now.
I don't think they're operating as a moral agent.
What?
You think they're operating as a moral agent?
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean that I don't trust them.
Why would you not trust it? Why would you trust an immoral agent? Why would you do that?
They're amoral. I would say that they're more amoral than. I don't think it's.
This is what I mean when I say lefties use words for to obfuscate, and I use words for utility. Like that doesn't make any sense.
If you think words matter, I also think words matter. Why is it? Why is it only okay
words
for
matter
you to
far
think
more
that
than
words
you,
matter?
unfortunately.
Oh, fuck off! I'm a fucking stickler for words and definitions.
Not enough.
Why are you making them a moral agent? I don't think. I think it's more than that. You can say whatever you want. I think we can agree to disagree on that. I don't think it's one or the other.
Well, then you would be fundamentally disagreeing with the ICJ, which would mean that you think you're smarter than them.
No, I wouldn't. What are they saying, that they operate as a moral agent?
Of course.
Do they say that?
I mean, I don't know if it's written anywhere, but obviously
if they say that, then they would be a moral agent. I'm
sorry. This makes no sense, Tashika.
If they claim themselves that they are operating based upon that, then okay, I'm not going to disagree with that. But when I say that they are more amoral, I would say that they go based upon and enforce the laws that are like pre-instated. Like, I don't know if that's like a moral thing. That's just like following the guidelines of legislation.
We're talking in circles. So if you acknowledge that what's going on in Israel-Palestine is a G-side, then why aren't you advocating for like Yahtzee Germany treatment with Israel? Like why aren't you advocating for that? Because there would only be one logical conclusion to draw from that situation. Like why?
I think I do.
You do what?
I advocate for that same treatment.
Oh, so you want boots on the ground, the entire world overthrowing the Israeli government?
I think that is the most logical outcome.
No. No. I'm sorry.
I guess we just disagree on that, brother.
Okay, but I mean that's an ass
you're
backwards
asking me
take.
why I don't advocate for that, and I literally do. I advocate for the dismantling of their systems and then rebuilding them with our interests in mind.
Why would you ever vote for the Democratic Party?
Why would I vote for them?
Yeah, why would you ever vote? Like, why not start a new party where you campaign on exactly what you're describing
even if they
right now?
even if they don't get me to the house I want to, Democrats still get me closer to what I want overall.
If you have that much conviction,
you don't just vote for Democrats based upon foreign
policy. If you have that much conviction in what you're saying right now, then you should be campaigning on a completely new party agenda with a brand new party. That's the issue.
You're not being pragmatic right now, brother.
Well, if you're defining it the way you are, then there's only one logical moral conclusion of what to do next. Now, listen, I'm not of the opinion that it is a quote-unquote G-side. I'm just not of that opinion.
Wait a minute. This is unfair. I think this is so unfair because you're not allowing me to have my personal beliefs, but then also have my pragmatic beliefs. And you're using my personal beliefs as my pragmatic beliefs, and I think that's unfair.
I'm not sure what you mean.
What I want to happen versus what I want to happen and what I think should happen is different from what I know will happen and what we should do. Those are two different concepts.
Okay, I guess if you're of the opinion that the Democratic Party is this incredibly immoral agent that's cartoonishly evil, and
I don't know what immoral agent even means when you're saying it anymore.
Okay. If the Democratic Party is in favor of upholding the Israeli government, when you are of the opinion that they are conducting quote-unquote G-side, then you wouldn't support the Democratic Party. You would be trying to create a new party with a new party platform that would fundamentally overthrow said government. And this is the issue, is when we give space to political extremism, we see things like what happened to Charlie Kirk. It's just true. I'm sorry. And like, while we can both agree that the Republican Party is engaging in some of the most destructive rhetoric we've ever seen in American history, the same could also be said for some of these incredibly far left people. I'm of the opinion that if Donald Trump didn't win the election in 2016, half the motherfuckers that call themselves communists wouldn't. And that's because they wouldn't think that political extremism is as socially acceptable as they think it is now. That's the truth.
So you want people to stop saying it's a genocide?
Yes.
So wait a minute. Say the ICJ comes out and gives an official report that they are committing a genocide, and then say like
then we're overthrowing the Israeli government tomorrow.
Wait a minute. Let's say for example, like a Democrat is in power. Oh fuck it. Actually, no. Like just say they do it tomorrow, right? Donald Trump is president.
Oh, we're cooked, first of all. But then once the Democratic Party gets into power, if they're not like destroying the Israeli government, then there's a problem there.
What if they don't do that?
Then we would create a new party. We literally would. That's literally what you would do.
How is that pragmatic? How do we do that?
It's at a certain point, the element of pragmatism goes out the window if it's like fundamentally opposed.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I'm asking you like, how would we do that?
Well, first of all, you shouldn't do that because that's not an adequate description of the problem.
Would it be justified to then topple our government if they support genocide at that point? Or if they don't fight against genocide?
I guess, yeah. I guess if that's really like the logical, then yeah. Well, genocide is the crime of all crimes. There's one.
No, I get it. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, there's one thing you would do if it was a quote unquote G-side. Like there was only one logical course of action that is moral.
Oh, Will is here. Oh, I suggest you let up Will and Hamboni.
We got Hambles and Will. Okay, am I gonna do a 3v1? Let's do it.
You're not gonna do a 3v1. I'm done talking.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time.
I want to watch this.
What's up?
What's the discussion being had?
I disagree with the way in which people are choosing to categorize the Israeli-Palestine conflict.
Oh, you're like denying the genocide going on?
No, I don't like you describing it that way. Because if the ICJ doesn't acknowledge what you're saying, then why should I?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the ICJ. So
okay, is it this incredibly corrupt entity? Is that what you're saying?
You think the ICJ is incredibly corrupt?
No, I think that's what you would have to logically conclude if you were to say that it's a G-side.
Why?
Because what moral agent would ever not come to the conclusion of a G-side being a G-side?
But they haven't. Sorry, they're currently deliberating on that right now.
Well, as it relates to right now, they've defined it as quote unquote plausible, which means that it's not, but that if they were to continue in the way in which they're choosing to, if the Israeli government were to continue acting in the way that it's acting for an extended period of time with a sizable level of civilian casualties, then it would be with the express intent of the Israeli government. That is in accordance with the definition.
That's not what the ICJ has said. Just to be clear.
No, the literal words are quote unquote plausible. It is a plausible.
Yeah, in the preliminary injunction. Do you know what a preliminary injunction is?
I can't say I do.
Okay, so you're citing a document you don't understand. This is the issue.
Okay, that's first of all. You don't need to have this incredibly hyper-specific terminology to not understand what the ICJ is saying when they come to that conclusion.
I'll be more respectful here. And then I will let you speak, Campbell.
I appreciate that.
No problem.
Yeah. The preliminary, the ICJ is currently deliberating on whether it is a genocide. The first thing we need to just take in our hearts is that the ICJ takes a very long time to make a decision because it is a court. This is what courts do. So the ICJ is currently deliberating on whether there is a genocide. They have issued a preliminary injunction against Israel on the basis of the Genocide Convention, and the only thing you needed to prove for that preliminary injunction was whether there was a plausible chance that if immediate action by the ICJ was not taken, the rights of Palestinians to not have their anti-genocide rights, basically the rights they gain under the Genocide Convention, would be violated. So the only question they were asked by South Africa, right, in that submission for request for preliminary injunction was whether it was plausible there was a genocide.
Correct.
So the only question the ICJ has answered yet is whether it was plausible there was a genocide, not whether, as a final judgment, there was one. So citing the ICJ in the way you have, which is it must be corrupt to not have found a genocide, is wrong. That's not true. They're actually acting exactly like every serious court would in making this serious decision, which is taking a long time to make the decision and releasing a preliminary injunction that has clear limitations on Israel powers, which they did Israel violated the preliminary injunction, and therefore, according to them, it is plausible those rights under the Genocide Convention have been violated.
I understand what you're saying, but at the end of the day, if we have the ICJ, which is the final deciding factor in this description of the problem, and they're not defining it in the way that would be quote-unquote G-side, then that fundamentally alters the way in which we would approach this situation geopolitically. So if Israel is conducting a quote-unquote G-side, then there's only one logical conclusion from which you could draw from this situation, regardless of what the ICJ says. Like, you would be boots on the ground overthrowing the Israeli government tomorrow. And I'm not of the opinion that my politicians are these cartoonishly evil people who would actively watch and have all of the resources available to come to these conclusions that you're espousing right now, and they would just actively watch that thing happen without.
But they did that in Serbia.
Serbia was how long ago?
Serbia was in the early 2000s.
Okay, do you think that in the early 2000s we're even remotely as politically progressive as we are now?
I would say
hang on. Okay, my argument is that in 2002 it was a different political system at a different point in time.
That's fine, but they were still equally, at least forward-facingly anti-genocide. We've watched plenty of genocides go down.
As it relates to our current political system, that is just not true.
We removed boots on the ground in Rwanda. We removed boots on the ground in Serbia.
But these political landscapes at the time were not representative of the political landscapes we have today. And there's just truth to that. I'm sorry. The fact that
Ham will speak, and then I'll respond.
Okay. Yeah. Let me just finish my point. Is that by virtue of the fact that me and you are even having this conversation in the first place, it expresses to me that the American constituency is progressive enough to recognize these issues if they were legitimately happening. And so this idea that they're not, then what's the explanation for that? Is it just shitty systems? Because if that's the case, then that sucks. But if it's
shitty systems.
No. Okay,
we let apartheid happen.
Okay, I would agree with you that what the Israeli government is doing is ethnic cleansing, absolutely, hands down, and there absolutely needs to be consequences levied against the Israeli government for said action. But when we don't have definitive the definitions of what the Israeli government is perpetrating on the Palestinian people, it's fundamentally going to alter the way in which you choose to process the situation.
Sorry, Hambles. Okay, yeah, go.
So I would like to point out, we would love to have all the answers, but who is the entity that is blocking discovery of this evidence?
Israel.
Exactly. So we would love to have journalists independently reviewing these bodies, independently reviewing what is being violated. We would love to have Netanyahu actually appear before the ICC and give testimony, because he currently has a warrant out for his arrest in order to better understand the situation. So it's Israel, and by proxy, the United States, that is blocking discovery. So doesn't that give you
I don't like this idea that the United States is responsible for Israel's actions in terms of quote-unquote blocking discovery. We can look at what the Trump administration has done and absolutely criticize it. But to say that's representative of the entire American political landscape, I don't think that's true.
Well, what the Trump administration...
we're talking about the American regime, just to be clear.
That rhetoric is so destructive to our
the state responsibility exists.
What the Trump administration does when they are backing the Israeli government, and we are funding many sectors of their government, not just like trade, not just like industry, we're backing what they're doing, and we are also engaging in arguably war crimes when we are setting up these drop-off points for supposed aid that the rest of the international community has deemed was actually an atrocious war crime because of how many people were unalived when they came to get that aid.
You'll never sit here and hear me say that I think that Israel is operating in a totally moral way. There are a bunch of things that the Israeli government has done that is objectively bad.
In the same way.
But you're not engaging with what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that no, you're not. Because what I'm saying is that the Democratic Party would have absolutely brought about better outcomes and been a far more moral agent in this conflict than the Republican Party. Do you acknowledge that?
Yeah, cool. But when...
No, hang on. It's not cool, bro. Because there's actual people who have lived experience that are going to be directly affected by...
But this is the majority party right now.
You have to sit here and acknowledge that the Democratic Party would be objectively better than the Republican Party.
I completely agree, but we're responsible now because we have in power the party that is completely letting them do what they wish to do, much more so than the Democratic Party. I'm not saying the Democratic Party is this completely cartoonishly evil entity. That's not how it has to be for us to have to hold responsibility for what is happening, because it is our government and they represent us.
And my only contention with you...
So then what was the point of that entire pivot?
No, because my issue with you is that if the Democratic Party was in power and they weren't coming to the conclusion that you're describing right now of it being a quote-unquote G-side, what would that mean about the Democratic Party? Would that mean that you would literally never vote for them again? Is that what you're saying?
No, because again, like what
how could you ever vote for an entity that would seemingly not come to the conclusion that is as serious as the one you're describing right now?
Do you want me to answer actually honestly?
Sure.
Because under the Republican Party, HIV medication was defunded globally and domestically, and I have HIV. No, listen, don't be all, oh.
Okay.
Seriously, listen, come on.
Okay.
In order for me to support a party, I also have to value my own life. So over 100,000 people have lost their lives to AIDS because of what the Trump administration has done with PEPFAR this last year. That is a direct threat to my life. So if I have to pick a party because I want to live, it doesn't matter how bad they are, I have to still live at the end of the day. So I have to pick a party that's not going to end my life. Does that not make sense to you?
That's totally fair. But this is the issue. It's like if you understand, and I completely understand you when you say that, but if we were to be of the opinion that the Israeli government was conducting a quote-unquote G-side, then the only logical thing to do would be to either get the Democratic Party in power, actively watch them do it, or create a new party with enough political legitimacy at its back to actively combat said issue.
Or
we
vote for Democrats, and more Democrats are normalized to not supporting this conflict because we put people into office after having popular support against
No one's
this.
talking about supporting the conflict. No one's talking about supporting the conflict. I'm talking about labeling what is going on in that conflict as a G-side, because that would fundamentally alter the way
sorry, can I? Because this is,
I feel like you should.
Yeah, this is just a weird conversation because there are a few things going on. There's like truth. Like there is a thing that is true. Either they are committing a genocide or they are not, right? There is truth that is helpful. So like what is helpful for us to talk about, which can meaningfully differentiate, right? We can meaningfully say this is true, right? But maybe it's not helpful to talk about because blank and blank and blank, right? And then there is like theory of change. Okay, we recognize the truth. We recognize it's helpful to talk about. What do we do about it, right? And like the thing you're talking about can either be one of these two things, right? It can either be, look, we recognize it's helpful to, if it is a genocide, we got to talk about it. And if it is a genocide, it changes my theory of change, right? And I need to not vote for Democrats or make a new party, right? There are a bunch of different disagreements here. Like, I am generally not very electoral. I think electoralism generally doesn't matter like that much.
What are you talking about?
Well,
like,
I mean,
this is why. Do you think Trump
have you
is
read?
that bad,
sorry,
bro?
just before
do you even think Trump is even remotely that bad?
One second. But like before we.
Okay, sorry.
Like, I mean this like very like compassionately, like this is my respectful way of saying it. Like, I understand the responsive and like emotional response because this matters a lot emotionally to everyone. I care about these issues just as much as everyone else, right? Like, I think I've demonstrated that for the past 5 years that like, I this is my life, right? And my analysis of politics is that what makes the decisions of the politicians, of the systems, is very rarely what people do in the voting box, but wildly what causes people to be in that voting box, what causes those politicians to be on those ballots, and then what pushes those politicians once they're in office to do things. So that's a theory of change disagreement that maybe you and I have. How do we talk about electoralism? What do we talk about? What we need to start with is what is a truth, right? Whether it is a genocide, right, is a thing that exists outside of the American context, right? And so if we're going to talk about whether it is a genocide, right, from my view, your points on the ICJ are just false. The ICJ does nothing but hurt your case. The ICJ.
That's not true. They literally have said that.
One second. This is the thing.
Sorry, it's just not true.
Okay, like I'll let you, I'm interested in what your point here is though, because from my view, from my understanding of the ICJ, I've studied it at least at undergrad. I understand a little bit of law. Like, I have a little bit of background in this. I've actually read ICJ cases. I understand a little bit about the ICJ. This is exactly what you would expect them to do if it was a genocide. So like, let's compare worlds, right? It's not a genocide. It is a genocide.
Okay.
Every single way you've described the ICJ is precisely and actually a little bit better than what you would expect they would do if it was a genocide.
Okay.
You're not pointing to me anything the ICJ does that would be like, oh, maybe they're having a hard time determining if it's genocide. Because this is exactly the time scale and the functions and the injunctions that they've released during previous genocidal convictions,
So
such as Myanmar and
unfortunately, I can't honestly speak to what you're saying right now, so I can't give you an adequate contention, which means that like I'm not aware of the process by which the ICJ has gone about conducting, in terms of like the actual time it's taken for them to come to those conclusions. I can't speak to that. So I want to be intellectually honest with you in this moment and say that like that's not something that I can really argue against in this moment. But I would like to believe that if me and you had the level of like information at our disposal to come to the conclusion of it being a G-side, then then like screw the ICJ at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so then there's only one logical conclusion for the United States government to do. There's only one.
Yeah, we should invade Israel. I've said this.
Okay.
This is my position.
So you
I believe in military intervention.
Thank
in
you.
Israel.
Okay, at least you finally admitted it. I appreciate that.
But like the thing is, America.
I don't think any of us ever denied it. Like that's not the first thing we said.
Yeah,
You
America
asked me,
famously
and I said
does
yes,
evil shit.
And then everyone else said yes.
Yeah, America
Okay, so
famously
everyone is of the
evil.
opinion that the Israeli government should be toppled and overthrown.
Yeah.
Okay, so by virtue of the fact that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have not advocated for that, does that mean that you are diametrically opposed to them in this conflict in a way that would make it so that it would be immoral for you to vote or support them?
So we're now at theory of change. But
I
you've
also have an
thrown in
argument after
a
Will.
third
I have an
thing,
argument after Will.
right? Which is the moral way to vote, right? So are you talking immoral in terms of instrumental, right, or in terms of can I live with myself?
At the end of the day, if you think something is a quote unquote G-side, then your personal reasons for voting for said things, I don't know if that's going to be the most moral thing to do if you understand something to be far worse. And
Every single president,
I understand
just to be
Will,
clear,
as he was just personally describing, he has some vested interest, or not Will, excuse me, Hambles. He was expressing that he had some vested interest in making sure the Trump administration doesn't win because he has his own personal experience or his own personal adversities that are fundamental in him voting the way. Yeah, what's up?
Okay.
What's up?
They use they them.
I'm sorry?
They use they them.
Oh, my apologies. I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay. You didn't know. You're fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So to answer the question that was asked, every single option I've ever had to ever vote for a national candidate has been a war criminal. Obviously, the crimes that that Biden engaged with while he was under Obama were clearly war crimes in their engagements in Afghanistan, in his support of the Iraq War. Stupidly, obviously war crimes. Literally, no one ever thinks they are. All of them are.
Okay.
So the question, if we are to engage with electoralism, we're way past the point of not voting for a war criminal. Whether that war crime is genocide, like it was for Jimmy Carter in East Timor, right? Like it is when you're complicit in the genocide of black people in Rhodesia, right? Which American presidents were. When we are complicit in South Africa, we can go through this list. Everyone has been either complicit or active in a genocide because the math works out, right? So if the discussion between how we deal with only being able to vote with genocide heirs or war criminals, right? And having to live in a system where they will always be the evil dipshits in power. It's really, from my view, it pushes me to leftism, where I find ways to influence that system of oppression, which is the whole entire electoral system, the whole entire liberal democracy, the whole entire liberal institution, right? Also, guys, I meant Rhodesia, which became Zimbabwe when it was illegally occupied. Anyway, I mean the racist state, not modern day Zimbabwe. Anyway, so how we interact with that is complicated, but I don't think that's the discussion you're having, right? But what I will say is, my conclusion, I voted for Kamala. I'm not really clear set on whether that was a moral or good thing to do that I can live with, but I can justify it instrumentally.
Yeah, well, as it relates to, I feel like it's absolutely moral to vote for Kamala Harris because she was advocating for, what is it? When it came to when the conflict kicked off, the Biden and Harris administration was going to leverage arms dealing to Israel if they didn't provide that necessary level of humanitarian aid associated with in accordance.
I don't
with
think they were.
law. You say that, but they leveraged that, and then you would go on Twitter the next day and you could literally see the Israeli food trucks driving into the Gaza Strip. You could be
they've released propaganda showing they would.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not of the opinion that the Israeli government is that depraved that it would lie to the entire American government about something as specific as what we're describing right now.
The UN has reported that they've consistently lied about humanitarian aid numbers.
Okay,
yes,
and that's an indictment probably more so on the Trump administration not adequately leveraging.
No, that was actually a year into the genocide under Biden.
Okay, so I can't speak to that specifically, but what I will say is that it is absolutely true that Kamala Harris would have brought about better outcomes for the Palestinian people. I feel like everyone should be able to admit that here and now.
I think that analysis is really, really complicated.
No, it's not. It's not. It really is.
But the thing is,
you know who disagrees with you the most, bro? It's Bibi Netanyahu himself. It really is.
Well, I don't disagree that Bibi Netanyahu, a bombastic fascist, thinks, but I also don't think. Here's the thing: it depends how you view. Sorry, and then I will let you speak, Hambles. I'm so sorry, but it depends what you think the role of fascism is in empire. If you think liberalism is the politics of maintenance of empire, you can see the argument that a fascist will actually end empire quicker and they have a chance. I don't think that is the immediate compelling argument, but I also don't think you understand the argument that's actually being made as to how incredibly despicable the neoliberal order is and why it actually led to the very fascism that you're suggesting, right? And I can do critical support of liberals. I get it, right? I understand critical support of liberals. I don't understand ever being one when we recognize every single liberal candidate for the past 70 years has committed some form of genocide or war crime. It's built into the ideology.
Hang on. Okay. Actually, Hambles, if you want to speak.
I mean, sure. You can also respond because I do respect the conversation. But what I would say, I think what you're trying to look for right now is like, what is the practical outcome? Because you can't imagine us going in and invading and doing all these things. I think it seems like absurd to you, right?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay, so my opinion also here is currently the UN and all of our allies are trying to come up with a process to get this sorted out. They're trying to come up with a process to fully investigate what is happening and also trying to decide who are the states that are going to actually potentially occupy these two regions and then recreate and rebuild their infrastructure and rebuild their political systems. This isn't the first time this has happened. This has happened many times during wars and conflicts. I don't think there is a reality in which the United States legitimately is involved in that occupation because we are such a personally involved party. We are very personal, not as much as Israel is, but we are the secondary, not even the tertiary. We are the secondary involved in this party. I think it's going to have to require other countries in the Middle East that are not going to be anti-Semitic and involvement with our other allies who both have support for us and have support for the people in Gaza. And I think that's going to look like some kind of occupation that we will probably help fund. It'll probably involve many people in the Trump administration and some people in the former Biden-Harris administration having to go to the international court and testify and be involved in that discovery and potentially be charged. I think the only reason that the International Criminal Court is not putting out these warrants for American diplomats is because we are currently the global hegemon. And I think our best way of getting this thing resolved is, and this is where I differ from Will, I think the best way of getting this resolved is by electing Democrats who have this on the mind, because they will be willing to be more conciliatory to our allies, in which the Trump administration has completely rejected the global order and has completely rejected actual involvement with the United Nations.
So, just to respond, there's a lot to respond to. Can we at least acknowledge that the Biden and Harris administration, or just the Kamala Harris administration, would have probably leveraged their arms dealings, for instance, or just any kind of geostrategic support for Israel to make sure that Bibi Netanyahu would arrive at the ICJ to be criticized and levied for war crimes? Can we at least acknowledge that it would at the very least be more plausible under the Biden and Harris administration?
Yes, I will say probability-wise, more likely than the Trump administration.
Okay, good.
But that's not necessarily saying it was going to be flowers and rainbows.
Yeah,
they could have just as easily ignored the entire process. Netanyahu does what he's going to do, and they just go off and they don't address anything. That could have also been a reality.
Can I note? I think there's a 0% chance America would have ever called for Netanyahu to go to the ICJ under any administration, considering we are not or the ICC, because we're talking about Netanyahu's indictment. We are not a member of the ICC. We reject the ICC, and we've sanctioned the ICC. There's no chance in hell Joe Biden, who, if he accepted the jurisdiction of the ICC, would also be liable, right? That's what criminal complicity means. If they wanted to throw Netanyahu in jail, they would have also had to throw themselves in jail. That's what complicity means. So no, there's no chance in hell any of them would have.
I don't know if what you're saying is true. I just can't speak to it. But listen, I feel like just a way for me to express where I'm at as it relates to this conversation. The second the ICJ comes to the conclusion that you're describing, I will be fully on board. It's considering the fact that they haven't arrived at said conclusion, it's hard for me to be fully on board with overthrowing an entire government. And that's just where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
When it comes to at least the very blatant settler colonialism that's happening in the West Bank, or what's happening in the Golan Heights, these are very obvious, at the very least, war crimes. Can you at least accept that?
100%. Like the Israeli settlements are like ethnic cleansing, 100%. And the Israeli government needs to make sure that doesn't happen.
And would you be in support of protesting our funding for Israel's any of that?
Here's the issue, is that I feel like if me and you are having this conversation right now, it acknowledges the fact that the American people are way more progressive than some other actors that would be like facilitating this conflict. And so I feel like U.S. involvement in
what other
region,
actors?
Like like China, for instance, a uniparty dictatorship. I don't know if they would have like a lot of capability of engaging in the way that we have engaged in the conflict in a.
And why does that comparison matter?
Well, you asked me the question, so
I don't know, but I'm wondering why that.
Because we live in a world of hegemonic powers. These hegemonic powers are responsible for facilitating global peace. So one of these like incredibly influential political powers is going to have some kind of influence in this region if you want to bring about the change that you're talking about. And
so wait, is your argument?
Hang on.
I just want to know what your argument is.
My argument is that the U.S. should be involved in this conflict, because if the conversation me or you are having right now is something that's feasible and like readily in the minds of the average American, then why would we not use our elected representatives to leverage our influence as American citizens to bring about that kind of change? That's what I'm saying.
So I guess like what I want to clarify about your argument, because you brought up China, you brought up these global powers. Are you worried that us being overtly critical and progressive within our own government systems to change them in this way would somehow shake the balance of the global community and then give China an upper edge? Like, I just want to understand like what you're...
No, to be honest, I don't think China would be involved in said conflict. I'm just saying like, and that's my reason for saying that like that's why the U.S. should be, because it's the only logical like global hegemonic power that could have any influence in this region to begin with. Like China, if they had any influence, it would be in favor of Iran. That's just the reality of the situation.
What's the argument you're making?
My argument is that the U.S. should be involved because there has to be a global hegemonic power facilitating that conflict as it is always historically been.
Perpetuating the occupation?
No, obviously not. And I don't think Kamala Harris would be doing that. That's what I'm saying. But I like.
But Kamala Harris was involved in perpetuating the occupation.
So it was at the onset of the conflict, though. Like at the end
for
of the
about
day.
A year.
Okay, but it was at the onset of the conflict.
And
Can we acknowledge
this
that?
conflict's been going on since
You're right.
1948.
You're right.
Which
But
he
what
was
I'm saying is
complicit
that,
in as a senator and as a vice president.
But what I'm saying is that the conflict that's like readily like it happened at the like end of the Kamala Harris administration or at the Biden administration.
Yeah.
So they didn't have all 4 years to leverage their political influence to bring about the change that both me and you want to see. That's what I'm saying.
What do you want to see?
I want to see an end to the conflict. I want to make sure that like
what does that look like for you?
A two-state solution.
Okay, so this is the thing, is like theory of change is one thing, end goal is another thing, right? So like we're having many different conversations.
Yeah.
I don't believe in a two-state solution. I fundamentally I don't think ethno-state should exist.
Okay, I don't disagree with you, but we talk about like actually bringing about pragmatic change, this idea that we're going to get rid of that ethno-state within the next 5, 10, 15 years. It doesn't seem
so are you saying like two-state interim, or are you saying two-state for 100 years?
Well, what do you mean by interim?
Like two states, and then with that two state, we work on dissolving the ethno-state aspect of it, so that we no longer are supporting that system and building that system up.
Exactly. 100%.
So what would the issue is two states.
Listen. Here's
makes sense.
Hang on. He just asked me a question. So he asked me, what would that two-state solution look like? I am not going to sit here and say that I have all of the answers to one of the most complicated geopolitical issues in human history. I'm just not going to do that. What I can say is that looking at all the information that's provided to me as it relates to what the ICJ has concluded so far, like the only pragmatic, realistic solution would be two states. The overthrowing of the Israeli government doesn't seem like a logical conclusion to me right now because the ICJ has not come to that conclusion. And that's my entire argument. You can say that the Trump administration has engaged in bad behavior that has prevented, say, for instance, Bibi Netanyahu from being tried at the ICJ. That's an indictment on Bibi Netanyahu, or excuse me, on Donald Trump, not necessarily the Democratic Party or America at large.
Can I draw like a quick parallel? Because I think you're very timid on having your own personal conclusions because you don't want to, I don't know, spread some sort of disinformation.
It's the exact opposite. It's like in terms of personal conclusions, like I'm deferring my conclusion to the ICJ. So it's not.
Yes, you're timid in having your own personal conclusion because you don't want to spread like disinformation or fear mongering. That's like literally what I said. What you just said.
I guess that's true for sure.
So like just like a little idea, like here, during the end of World War II, when we discovered Birkenau, would you say, no, we have to completely wait until all of these hearings are done before we can really have our own personal opinions on this issue? Or would you have said, oh, this is blatantly an inhuman thing that has been done, and I'm going to personally admonish it because it is the personally moral and right thing to do?
I don't have the personal knowledge to probably come to a conclusion as to the question you just described to me. From what I understand is that, well, I guess if I were to defer to what Will was saying about the ICJ taking some time to come to those conclusions in a way that might not be as humanitarian as it should be, then I guess I would probably disagree. But listen, I at the end of the day, I'm going to be intellectually honest with you and say that I don't have the adequate level of information to come to that conclusion.
Okay.
Can I just say, like, sorry, maybe people see my faces. This is like insanely. You're not doing anything. Well, like, you're wrong. Like, that's why I disagree with you, and I'm debating you, obviously, right? But like, you're not doing things that are like particularly frustrating. It's just deeply frustrating for me that like you genuinely want to like do good things, but the things you're saying, at least from my view, are like wildly propagandized, and like. A frustrating, I don't know, I'm finding it personally. I just wanted to explain my face. I'm finding this personally frustrating because the ICJ has made decisions as it relates to Israel. Also, just for a note, the ICJ wouldn't be the one that prosecutes Benjamin Netanyahu. It would be the ICC, different institution.
Yeah.
And they've already sent out an indictment for Benjamin Netanyahu for war crimes, which every European nation, as well as most of the world except for the US, have an obligation to enforce, and none of them are. And so we're already in violation of our international law. In July of 2024, the ICJ released a ruling finding that their actions in the West Bank and the fence around Gaza constituted a violation of the Apartheid Convention. Yeah. I think if you're committing apartheid, you should also be invaded. Like, I think that.
I wouldn't necessarily disagree, but I guess at the end of the day, and this is where my entire argument revolves around, is like, I have trust in my federal institutions to come to the right conclusions.
Why? You guys are not, on what basis?
Because
Why?
I'm sorry, because we live in a representative democracy where we elect leaders. This idea that
when has that ever happened in any geographic conflict since World War II? We were wrong in Vietnam. We were wrong in Cambodia. We were wrong in Korea. We were wrong in South Africa. We were wrong in Rhodesia. We were wrong in Syria.
Very, very, very wrong in Iraq.
We were wrong in the response to Kuwait, 2 trillion%.
How so?
When we carpet bombed Iraq?
Well,
that was wrong. When we killed
I don't know that to be true. I'm sorry.
We killed Wait, we didn't carpet bomb Iraq?
I'm not saying
the evidence is out there.
Wrong. That's what I'm saying.
America admits.
Do you think Hiroshima was inherently bad?
No doubt.
There's
absolutely no doubt that we bombed
Do you
Iraq.
think Hiroshima was inherently a bad thing?
Yeah, Hiroshima was wildly wrong. Yeah, obviously incredibly
most
wrong.
People were. I think most historians would actually disagree with you.
I think most historians wouldn't say it wasn't bad.
Like, too many people have brainworms about. But Hiroshima was fucking evil, yeah.
Well, you say it was evil, but the most historians understand that it was a adequate decision at the time.
Most historians do not. Most American liberal historians bow down to the common world. But like, no one thinks the vast majority.
To sit here and say that there isn't a legitimate debate about Hiroshima and the overall moral.
There's a legitimate debate. Okay, there's a legitimate debate about a lot of things. I mean, there's legitimate debate. Also, like, I have a position though.
Even just as recently as like Abu Ghraib, like, we know that we objectively did not punish the people who built up those systems and tortured those innocent civilians, and we have never punished them. We have never punished the relevant actors around them. Do you think that is a system that you should just inherently trust?
That's a fair argument. That's honestly a fair argument. A lot of the specifics of these things you're describing, I can't speak to.
Can you give me an example following World War II where we were right?
Well, first of all, as it relates to directly after World War II, I think us investing in the German economy and the German infrastructure immediately after, I think that was
fine.
No, hang on. That's a legit. Okay, immediately after World War II, like the U.S. doing what they did in that respect.
I want a separate conflict. Is my question.
Okay, you want a separate conflict that was after World War II. The U.S. was.
Because I can name 10 that were wrong.
Okay, I honestly am of the opinion that the U.S. government is engaging in a relatively moral way as it relates to the Israel-Palestine conflict. Not under Donald Trump, but under the Biden-Harris administration. Absolutely. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Right, so when you sit here and you giggle at me, it's very hard for me to continuously engage in this conversation with you.
I'm so confused. How was our support for the Yom Kippur War right?
Hang on.
Wait, why are we pivoting? The Yom Kippur War.
Why are we pivoting? I just told you Israel Palestine, the issue that this entire
with
conversation has been about. Like I'm acknowledging that the Biden-Harris administration would have absolutely engaged in a relatively moral way, and Bibi Netanyahu agrees with me.
He doesn't agree that they would have engaged in a moral way. He agrees that they would have
given him absolutely a bunch of adversities that the Trump administration has not given them.
Well, yeah, because Benjamin Netanyahu is an ethnostatic fascist, and so is Donald Trump.
That's fine, but at the end of the day,
so obviously they want each other in power.
That doesn't mean that the Democratic Party.
So it was liberals that, like international liberals were the ones that did the Nakba.
International liberals were the ones who did the Nakba. Could you
Ben Gurion.
Say that?
Ben Gurion.
Okay.
He was comparatively liberal. He believed in fundamental institutions. He was not explicitly an ethnostatic fascist, right? He was what we would compare to like the prime minister in 2007 of Israel, who did like the Operation Cast Lead.
Yeah.
Like but you made a claim, just a very specific claim, which is America engages in a generally moral way with the Israel-Palestine conflict. What's the timescale on the claim that you made?
How do you mean the timescale?
Like what are you talking? Are you talking the past 5 years, past 10 years, past 20 years?
To keep it more specific, I would say the past since October 7th of 2023.
So not. So almost every single international organization ever said we should stop funding them. Amnesty, for example, Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, and Save the Children all said that America should stop funding them.
I mean, if we even look, sorry, you can respond. I don't want to like steamroll.
No, you're okay. Continue.
If we even look at like just the late 1940s up until now, if we create like a graph of like land occupied, innocent civilians unalived, encroachment onto people's civil rights and liberties, the rate at which people who are Palestinian having to flee, like the graph just goes steadily up from that time. There's no breakthrough in which there is a humanitarian benefit or civil liberties expansion for any of these people. It's just a constant degradation of them. So I don't understand like how you are measuring this.
Well, I don't know how many times I have to say this. I am not in support of the Israeli government and what it's doing. I think it absolutely is engaging in ethnic cleansing. That we can absolutely all agree on here. I guess the only contention I have with both of you is that if the ICJ has not come to this conclusion, then I don't understand how you could see that as an indictment on me when I don't have the adequate information.
Well, they've come to the conclusion they've done apartheid.
Yeah, that's not Genocide though.
And have they come to the
issue is if you fund and support apartheid. That's
also. Haven't they come to the conclusion that at minimum it's ethnic cleansing at minimum as well?
Hang on, I have to respond to what Will just said.
Okay,
and
unfortunately, they're both kind of grouped in the same argument.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to start wrapping it up. I do appreciate the conversation and y'all's perspective.
Yeah, no, fair.
And I hope you guys come on again and I can have a bit more of a better argument in favor of my position when I do a bit more of a research as to what you guys were talking about specifically. What all I'm trying to say is that I don't know how y'all are expecting me to come to a conclusion that the ICJ hasn't come to yet. That's all I'm saying is that like I as an individual don't have the level of resources to come to conclusions about that conflict that would be better than the ICJ. And we can acknowledge that the ICJ currently hasn't come to that conclusion and there could be an adequate description of it as a quote unquote Genocide, but it would require the Democratic Party to make sure that we can influence Netanyahu's actions in a way that would bring him to The Hague. You feel me?
Okay, can I make a really simple point here? Because I think if that is your actual full good faith actual argument, I would argue, okay, just very simple. Has Israel invaded Rafah?
Yeah.
Yes. In the preliminary injunction, the preliminary injunction is the piece that you cited, right, which said that there was a plausible genocide that would according to a reasonable viewer, reasonably the rights that Palestinians have under the Genocide Convention would be violated if the preliminary injunction is not followed. Okay, so the rights they have is the right to not have genocide committed against them. So just like it's a bunch of double negatives. So it means if you don't follow this preliminary injunction, we will consider you to have violated the Genocide Convention.
Okay,
If you
but
violate
you
the
can
genocide-
violate the Genocide Convention. Does that
can.
inherently mean that it's a quote unquote G-side, or does it mean
Yes.
that under specific context of that convention, essentially,
No.
they could be acting in specific parts, or they could not be acting
No.
in specific parts? I don't know.
There are 2 crimes in the Genocide Convention, or 3: complicity, aiding and abetting, genocide. They're not complicit in their own actions. They're not aiding and abetting their own actions. They're doing the thing, right? Like, if you violate the Genocide Convention, it means it's a genocide. There's no other crime, and that's why it has its own convention, right? It's like, boom, it's there, right? It was literally made this way. So they've invaded Rafah. The preliminary injunction said not to invade Rafah, if you want a good faith reading of what the ICJ
if they just
said,
invaded Rafah, is that adequate enough information for you to conclude that it is
according to the ICJ.
I don't know if that to be true, honestly, and I don't have the specifics
then
to
you
argue
don't- the
against
thing is-
it.
the
But
thing
it doesn't
you're
logically
making an
make sense to
argument.
me.
You're making is it not good enough that Amnesty International has said it's a genocide?
I guess, yeah. Honestly, I mean, I would have to say that if I were to support my argument. So yes.
Human Rights Watch,
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
UN Special Rapporteur,
Yeah,
B'Tselem.
yeah.
You really here's the issue: is you're taking administrative silence by the ICJ and inaction by the people doing the genocide, which, like, America, like it or not, it's American bombs. It's American.
Why
guns,
should we not
it's American
use the
weapons that are
ICJ as the determining entity to come to that conclusion?
Okay,
That
do
would
you
be
condemn them for
more
apartheid?
powerful
Do
and
you
more-
think we should
That's
invade
what I'm
and
saying.
respond to that?
Do you
I can
think we should?
respond to that as my
Do you
closing
think we should
statement.
stop funding a country that is engaging in apartheid?
Unfortunately, at this point, I would say no, because I think in order to end that apartheid, it would take the geostrategic interest of the United States to bring that about. That's all.
So
I'm
I was
saying.
right. I was right. Earlier, I was
Also, what would
asking,
differ if it became a
why
genocide?
shouldn't we get involved in this conflict? And I asked, are you worried that there'll be some sort of geopolitical destabilization in which the tables are tilted a certain way so that China may have an upper edge? You literally just admitted to that. But
Well,
anyway,
China has like diametrically opposing interests, and as it relates to that conflict.
I know. That's
Okay.
why I'm. Okay, never mind. So I'll just give my closing statement because you need to move on. I will say, if you are waiting for the ICJ to definitively say something is a G-side or not a G-side, then you are going to be waiting for the rest of your life. Because what we see with Iraq, what happened there, we all accept it in academia. We all accept that it was a G-side. We never paid out reparations. We never rebuilt their systems. We never did anything to be accountable for what we did. And the reason we have not is because the global community fears us because we have an unfettered amount of power. Whether it's in the World Bank, whether it's in the UN Security Council, we have so much power that other countries don't feel comfortable doing these things because global institutions are run by norms, and the norms are unequally controlled by the United States. So if you're waiting for that, it means you're going to be waiting for the rest of your life, because otherwise, why have we not done anything with Iraq? Why have we not done anything? It's because we won't. But that is my closing statement. I appreciate you having me up here.
I appreciate your time, and I hope that we can re-engage in this conversation at some point when I have a bit more specificity for my arguments.
Yeah, of course. Have a good night.
Yeah,
Slay,
but Will, if you wanted to make a closing argument as well.
Sure. I'm genuinely, like, I get it. I'm so confused. Because a few things. Everyone that has made a decision, so the ICJ hasn't made a decision yet because they are a court and take a long time. That's just what they're doing. Everyone that has time has made a decision and is saying, hey, it's a genocide. Literally everyone.
Well, not the United States.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck what the United States says.
That sucks because it's super important.
They're not even a vaguely credible source on international law. Not even vaguely. Right. Their whole entire international legal position is to undermine.
To say that the United States doesn't have influence in coming to these decisions, I'm sorry. Like what?
Influence is different. That's a language of power, not a language of morals or law.
Okay. I mean, but
America pulled out of our. We effectively pulled out of the international legal system following losing a court case in Nicaragua. Like, it's difficult to describe without going into like a lot about international law. But most of international law was made in opposition to what America did because they are so evil with their power. Like everything we did, like oil platforms case, Nicaragua case, the Genocide Convention case, is all about saying, hey, America's like obviously and stupidly doing evil shit. Anyway, I'm getting on a tangent, but my point is, everyone that has any actual independent expert opinion on this is saying it's genocide. Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, B'Tselem, the UN Special Rapporteur, everyone is saying it. The ICJ will say it. I mean, there's really no chance. They've gotten as close as they conceivably can in saying it in that. And they've said it's an apartheid. And so my question would be, if you're saying we still have to send money to them, even though they're an apartheid, right? We still have to send money to them, even though they're committing ethnic cleansing. How the fuck is the line genocide? Nothing materially changes between apartheid and genocide other than one person dying. That's the difference.
I mean,
that's the legal difference.
But like at the end of the day, we have to acknowledge that Genocide is the crime of all crimes, right? It's
But
the
there's
single
difference,
worst thing a
materially.
state could do on a population. You feel me?
Yeah, and the
like-
second
it's
worst
like-
is ethnic cleansing, and the third is apartheid.
Well,
and the
if
only
you
difference is one
acknowledge that the
person
United
dying.
States engaged in ethnic cleansing against the Native Americans, then why?
Yeah, and we
how could
committed
you
genocide against the Native Americans.
Okay, there's not conclusive evidence to support that claim.
We
There's
know,
not.
really?
Yeah, no. Again, we
we
have to defer to historians who come to conclusions about these things.
You don't think Andrew Jackson's Trail of Tears was a genocide?
It was ethnic cleansing.
And what did we intend to kill them?
We probably intended to kill some of them, but this idea
Yeah,
that it was
and genocide
no,
only
hang on.
means in
The idea
part.
that it was the expressed intent to destroy that population
In
this
whole
thing-
or in
and-
part.
Okay,
Yes.
and this is my contention. Is like, what if I would say, for instance, Andrew Jackson in that moment, and 10 Native Americans died? Would that be in part? You feel me? So like, what's the threshold? We don't have any.
It's the intention element.
Okay. So then,
And
if
more
it's the-
than
if it's- if
8,000
it's the-
sorry.
No, hang on. This is my issue. Okay. What if I don't think Andrew Jackson had the expressed intent to completely destroy the Native American population?
He did. I mean, he loved
No,
killing
he
natives.
didn't. Then why was he forcefully relocating them to a different
Because-
location?
Well, first of all, it was a super effective way to kill them. And second of all, he said he didn't want natives on their land.
That's ethnic cleansing. I agree. That's bad.
Okay, I just want to say, you use this word ethnic cleansing, and if you're going to use it as a legalistic term, it's not a real term. It was made up by, ethnic cleansing is a term made up by people committing genocide in Serbia.
That's a strong claim that I can't adequately argue against.
Okay, look it up. Look up the origin of the term ethnic cleansing. It comes from the genociders of Serbia, right? And they explicitly said, right, we want to make it sound cleaner, so we're going to call it ethnic cleansing, right? If my memory serves, it is the people that did the Srebrenica massacre, right?
Hang on. Hang on. So it's saying the term ethnic cleansing is pretty new in historical terms. It only entered common international usage in the early 1990s during the war following the breakup of Yugoslavia.
Yep. So that would be.
Is that what you were
So
just saying?
Serbia was a part of Yugoslavia, and then they committed genocide against Bosnia.
I see.
Yeah. So the word. This doesn't reflect on you. I have to note it for like poetic romanticism. The word you are using was literally conceived to make genocide sound better. That's what it was made to be. Because genocide isn't just killing people, right? There are other acts you can take other than directly killing people that would commit genocide. Removing children from their population, destroying reproductive abilities, like unconsensual hysterectomies, which Israel has been found to do.
I think that the term as it relates to what that is called cultural genocide. If I'm not mistaken.
No.
As
So
it relates to,
removing children is in the Genocide Convention definition.
Okay.
So this is the issue is like, I think you are having a rhetorical or somewhat reactive understanding what genocide is, when in fact, if you commit, there is no case of ethnic cleansing I can think of that did not include the modern definition of genocide. The definition of genocide as defined by Genocide Convention is indistinguishable from ethnic cleansing because any relocation of a whole entire population will include at least lowering their life conditions to the point that it threatens their ability to live. That's one of the requirements. That's one of the possible actus reus of genocide. Okay. It's the same thing. So if you accept it's ethnic cleansing, it feels like a nicer word because it was made to be a nicer word, and you've fallen for it. So I guess that's my closing statement. Your line won't be genocide, and it never will be if it's not apartheid.
I appreciate your time. There's a lot of research that I want to do and have this conversation again, so I could better articulate my argument. I hope that we can at some point in time do that.
Yeah, DM me. I'll be up. Okay. I'll be around. Peace out.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Okay.